Our adventure begins in Antarctica, where a team of scientists is hard at work drilling into the ice to collect core samples. But as they drill deeper, disaster strikes. The ice beneath their camp starts cracking, and their drill begins to sink. Just when it seems things couldn't get worse, Jason nearly falls into the hole. Thankfully, Jack and Frank are quick to grab him and pull him to safety. But the danger isn't over yet. Jack takes a daring leap over the crack to retrieve the samples, only to have the ice break under his feet, sending him tumbling down. Miraculously, he manages to grab hold of an axe, and his friends haul him back up to safety. As they catch their breath, they witness the astonishing sight of the entire ice shelf breaking apart. But our story doesn't end there. The scene shifts to a big meeting about global warming in New Delhi, where the stakes are higher than ever. Jack Hall, who studies old climates, warns everyone that something really bad might happen. He says the Earth could freeze over if we keep using fossil fuels like we are now. He tells them it might not happen for a long time, but our grandkids could be in big trouble if we don't change. After the meeting, Jack meets Terry, who works for a group that watches the weather. They talk about what they've seen happening, and it starts snowing a lot while they're talking. This makes them think that maybe what Jack warned about is starting to happen. Over the next few weeks, weird weather hits different parts of the world. In Japan, huge blocks of ice fall from the sky, hurting a lot of people. These ice blocks are the biggest ever seen. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Terry's computers show that parts of the ocean are getting very cold fast. They're so cold that the signals they put in the ocean have frozen solid. And up in space, astronauts see huge storms forming on Earth. All these things happening make it clear something is wrong with our climate, and we need to do something about it fast. In the next scene, we're in Washington, D.C., where Jack is dropping off his son, Sam, at the airport. Sam, a super smart student, got invited to a big competition in New York. Even though Jack is famous for his work, Sam seems upset with him. Jack's always been too busy for his family because of his job. But he promises Sam that once he's retired, he'll make up for lost time with the family, as long as they're all still around. Later, when Sam, along with his friends Laura and Brian, reaches New York, they see a bunch of birds flying away fast, like they're scared of something. Meanwhile, Terry calls Jack from his weather monitoring place and tells him some scary news. He says the big freeze Jack talked about is coming fast, and there's no way to run from it. When Jack asks how bad it is, Terry says it's the worst thing in 10,000 years. Then, we're in a weather center in California, where a guy is hanging out with his girlfriend. Suddenly, he gets a call for help. Someone says it's raining huge hailstones in LA. The guy checks the TV and sees how bad it is. Hailstones as big as golf balls are causing chaos in the city. He rushes to call his boss and tells him to warn everyone about the tornadoes that could come next. As the chaos unfolds, giant tornadoes tear through the city, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. It seems like it was one wild gender reveal party gone wrong. In response to the escalating crisis, an urgent meeting is called at the Office of Global Change in Washington, D.C. Attendees discuss the severe weather events happening around the world, recognizing that something is seriously amiss. Amid the meeting, Jack, who is present among the attendees, sheds light on the root cause of the chaos: the disruption of the North Atlantic currents due to the rapid melting of polar ice, a consequence of global warming. He warns that what they're witnessing is just the beginning and that things will only get worse in the coming days. In the next scene, Jack meets with the Vice President to stress the critical nature of the situation. He emphasizes the urgent need for mass evacuations in the northern states to prepare for the impending polar blast. However, the Vice President, failing to grasp the gravity of the situation, dismisses Jack's warnings, displaying a dangerous level of ignorance. Meanwhile, in the UK, heavy snowfall blankets the land at an alarming rate. 3 helicopters are dispatched to retrieve the Queen from the royal palace. However, as they fly through the eye of the storm, their instruments freeze instantly, further highlighting the dire consequences of the unfolding disaster. As the chopper blades grind to a halt, all 3 helicopters plummet to the ground, leaving devastation in their wake. Only one pilot survives the crash, but he's tragically frozen to death the moment he steps out of the wreckage. Meanwhile, back in Manhattan, Sam and his friends find themselves stranded amidst the chaos. All transport services have been crippled by the relentless downpour. Desperate to escape the city's turmoil, the trio ventures onto the streets, only to be met with further devastation as a colossal tsunami emerges out of nowhere, swallowing skyscrapers and even the iconic Statue of Liberty. With the imminent danger looming, Sam and his companions seek refuge in the National Library Hall, but the onslaught claims the lives of thousands who aren't as fortunate. Amidst the chaos, Terry reaches out to Jack, alerting him to the freezing air over Europe that caused the helicopter crashes. Jack's alarm grows as he discovers that the approaching storm will hit the US much sooner than anticipated, with only 48 hours before everything freezes over. Consulting weather predictions, Jack uncovers the emergence of 3 monstrous weather systems worldwide, rapidly escalating in intensity. In Europe, the polar freeze has already begun its deadly march. Meanwhile, Sam frantically searches for a working telephone in the library, desperately trying to reach out for help in the face of nature's relentless fury. In a place with no mobile reception, Sam struggles to find a working telephone. Eventually, he discovers one submerged in water on another floor. Desperate to reach his parents, he swims to it and finally manages to make a call. Jack's relief is palpable upon hearing his son's voice. He instructs Sam to stay safe, urging him to put on water wings and emphasizing the importance of staying indoors to avoid freezing to death instantly. Though worried, Sam finds solace in his father's reassurance that help will come soon. The following day, as the library's occupants gather supplies, they are startled by a strange noise outside. Peering through the windows, they witness the unbelievable sight of a cargo ship sailing through the flooded streets. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Jack is tasked with briefing the state of the situation. He begins by instilling fear, warning that the worst is yet to come. Jack proposes the urgent evacuation of residents from the southern states to Mexico. However, the vice president opposes the idea, citing logistical challenges and taking a jab at the notion of walls. He questions the fate of the residents in the north. Jack grimly acknowledges that it's too late for them, advising them to stay indoors as venturing outside would mean certain death in the freezing storm. Surprisingly, the president heeds Jack's advice and orders the National Guard to evacuate the remaining population to the south. In New York, the library occupants observe a group of people trekking across the frozen landscape, deducing that they're heading towards warmer states. Inspired by their determination, they decide to brave the snow before it worsens. Despite Sam's warnings of the impending danger, his pleas fall on deaf ears, and everyone except his group and a few others leave the library. Meanwhile, Jack embarks on his journey to New York with his colleagues and close friends, Frank and Jason. Accustomed to Arctic weather from their research trips, they press on. Back at the library, Sam's group scours the building for food, finding vending machines and gathering books to burn for warmth. As Jack and his crew navigate through the snow, they encounter a roadblock, forcing them to continue on foot. They trek with determination, but tragedy strikes when they reach the top of a fragile building. Frank breaks through the glass and falls, caught only by a lifeline held by his friends. With the glass cracking, Frank makes the heartbreaking decision to cut his lifeline, sacrificing himself so his friends can continue their mission. Back at the library, Laura falls unconscious with a fever, sparking concern among the group. They discover a wound on her leg, fearing it may lead to blood poisoning. In a dire turn of events, Laura's urgent need for penicillin to avoid amputation becomes apparent. Determined to save their friend, Sam decides to brave a nearby cargo ship in search of medicine, with Brian and JD joining him. Meanwhile, at a military base, the vice president receives devastating news. The president has died in an accident during evacuation. Adding to the crisis, researchers discover that the eye of the storm is now heading towards New York City. Elsewhere, Jack and Jason struggle to reach their destination, with Jason collapsing from exhaustion. Jack carries his friend onward, hoping to make progress. Back at the library, the trio sets out for the cargo ship, only to encounter hungry wolves that escaped from a nearby zoo. Jade's fate seems sealed, leaving Sam and Brian to navigate the ship's dangers alone. Despite the peril, they manage to find penicillin in the ship's kitchen but are soon attacked by the wolves. Though JD is bitten, they rescue him and brainstorm escape plans. As they ponder their options, Sam notices the skies clearing outside, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. Realizing the imminent danger of the approaching eye of the storm, Sam takes a bold step, risking himself to lure the wolves away from the kitchen. He dashes through the abandoned ship, narrowly evading the pack. Reuniting with his friends, they find JD unable to stand. Sam and Brian fashion a makeshift sled to transport JD back to the library. Meanwhile, Jack, grappling with the realization of the storm's proximity, searches desperately for shelter. Spotting an open vent, he hurriedly secures Jason inside before joining him. As the frost creeps in, freezing everything in its path, they narrowly escape the storm's wrath. Back at the library, the group scrambles to maintain the fire, their lifeline against the brutal cold. With sheer determination, Jack manages to light a fire with an open stove, providing much-needed warmth. Jason awakens to find the place encased in ice, signaling the storm's passage. Despite the storm's departure, Jack is resolute in his mission to continue. However, Jason voices concerns about the lingering danger outside. With time running short, Jack asserts the urgency of their situation. That night, they find shelter in a tent, contemplating humanity's future amidst the chaos. Jack reflects on the resilience of humans through past ice ages but warns of the looming threat of extinction in this one. After enduring weeks of relentless storms, signs of hope emerge. The International Space Station observes the storm dissipating in Europe, marking a turning point. Meanwhile, Jack emerges from the tent to find clear skies and sunlight breaking through. As they trek through the frozen landscape, they encounter the surreal sight of the Statue of Liberty and sunken ships trapped in ice. Their journey fraught with pain and suffering leads them to Manhattan's shores. However, their hopes are dashed upon discovering the library swallowed by ice. With despair looming, a glimmer of hope appears. Spotting a small opening in the snow, Jack and Jason rush to investigate. With a surge of determination, they enter the library through the opening, clinging to the possibility of survival amidst the desolation. Determined to find Sam, Jack, and Jason scour the icy terrain until, to their immense relief, they locate him and his group. Despite the harrowing conditions, they are alive, thanks to the warmth of the fire. The long-awaited reunion between father and son unfolds, marking a poignant moment amidst the turmoil of the weather. The scene then shifts to Mexico, where the new president receives news of survivors in New York. Energized by the discovery, he announces a major rescue operation on live television, pledging to retrieve anyone stranded in the northern states. In the final moments of the movie, helicopters reach Manhattan, discovering several survivors gathered on rooftops, awaiting rescue. Among them are Jack, his group, and Sam's group. They are finally airlifted to safety in the south. As the movie concludes, an astronaut aboard the International Space Station gazes at the Earth, remarking on the clarity of the sky. His observation is interrupted by a playful remark about spotting Bezos's rocket, adding a touch of levity to the profound sense of relief and hope that permeates the scene.